so they took pictures at Lily and Matthew's wedding.
Okay.
They were the wedding photographer.
Okay.
Jared is quite the I guess graphic designer is what he
Yeah.
is. And he is quite good and is just a prince of a guy.
Yeah.
They're very,
I think
very
they're both lovely. I just haven't seen her in 13, 14 years.
they bought this Cochran's house, which is was right behind us. And Miss
Right.
Cochran was, ooh, I guess she was pushing mid-80s when she passed away. She was still there, and then they bought that house afterwards. And Jared did a lot of work, but it was a big undertaking. When Jacob and Jessica moved in, they undertook substantial renovations. They found some things, of course, that had been a problem for Jared that was full-scale renovation. HVAC was in the crawl space, which means
Oh, of course.
that
As
down
soon as
to
you
that.
said that, I was like,
That's 5 even back then. But yeah, they're lovely people. And did you go and get your pictures taken?
No, we should have. We didn't get back down to do that. No, we should have. We went down and saw the camper and all the pieces.
Yeah, that's a fun group.
It was cute. Yeah.
They're good people.
Yeah, it's fun to go share. We just like it. It's like, but yeah, it's like
And I asked them, I said, so you guys did Robert hire you? And she said, no, Brian and Lindsay were coming anyway.
okay.
So they just came over. They bought it. They bought that thing as a group.
Okay.
And let's put it this way, I find most of it. and
They said they're banking cash now, so hopefully you've been repaid whatever you put into
well,
it.
it doesn't, at that point, it was one of those things because I went through it. They raised a fair amount of money themselves,
Okay.
all of them together.
Yeah.
And then I just said, okay, well, I tell you what, I'll just take you over the top, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be part of it. I'm giving money every year.
Okay. Yeah.
Christmas,
Just
I
help it.
just said, just go ahead and do that.
I get you.
But you really have to carry it
Yeah.
as part of
Yeah.
your effort. So she did. But yeah, it's a
great
fun
party.
thing.
It's got such a wide range of people.
Well, Robert intersects with a lot of communities.
Yeah. And I have no idea what time the party shut down because it's probably a late party. I wouldn't
I'm sure there was a late crowd too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. We were the early crowd. We were out of there by a decent time.
I was just there at my normal time, which is 9:30.
Yeah. We had a good time.
So, what's over and under?
Oh, is that right?
That's sort of the problem. If I was him, I'd say,
Do they present him?
they should present it. Well, they get, this will be the first time any of us have seen what the city's recommendation is. And there are so many different ways that you can go.
All right, good evening and welcome. Today is Monday, November 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m., and the Planning and Zoning Board meeting for the City of Smyrna is called to order. For those of you joining us for the first time, this meeting is conducted much like a council meeting. As such, each application will include a presentation from city staff, followed by a question and answer session between staff and the board. Following staff's presentation, we'll have the applicant present their case and answer any questions. Once all the questions have been satisfied up here, we'll have an opportunity for anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to the application. We ask that you come forward one at a time, state your name and address for the record, and please sign the sign-in sheet at the podium with just your name and address. But please direct all your comments to the board. All right, the first item on our agenda is 5-015. This is to be tabled to the December 8th, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion to table this item? All in favor? Tabled. All right. The next item on our agenda is Z25-016. This is to allow rezoning from LC to R15 conditional for the development of one single-family home. It's 0.57 acres, land lot 592. This is 1521 Roswell Street. Mr. Neese.
Good evening, Joey Stobbs, Planner 2 in the Community Development Department. This is Z25-016. The applicant is Eric Neese. Your recommendation will go to Mayor and Council on December 15th. Subject property is 1521 Roswell Street. It's a little over half an acre. There was a house that's been demolished. The applicant is wishing to rebuild one single-family home on the property. Current zoning is limited commercial. For residential, it needs to be rezoned residential. As you can see on the zoning map, a lot of those properties on Roswell Street are zoned limited commercial or future commercial. The future land use map shows moderate density residential land use, and all but to the south is moderate density residential. To the south is medium high density residential. This is the proposed site plan. It'll have the R15 zoning setbacks, front 35, rear 30 feet. The east side they're requesting a reduction to 8 feet for the garage to align with the driveway. And the west side will be 10 feet. Be a single family home, approximately 4,000 square feet with an average height of 32 feet. They have a detached garage in the back that's 2 stories. Essentially, they're looking to mimic the house to the east with this proposal. They're proposing their stormwater detention at the rear of the property, and they're requesting 5 variances. 1, the east side setback reduction from 10 feet to 8, a driveway setback reduction from 5 feet to 2, allow a detached accessory structure greater than 25% of the primary structure, allow an increase in the detached accessory structure height from 15 feet to 18 feet, and to allow an impervious coverage increase from 35% to 39%. But that will be accommodated for in their stormwater detention. This is the front and side elevations of the house, and then the front and side elevation of the garage. This is the subject property and some adjacent properties. Staff is recommending approval, rezoning from LC to R15 conditional at 1521 Roswell Street for one home. We'll have the standard conditions regarding the architectural composition, underground utilities, no bearing of construction debris. They'll have to meet our tree ordinance. As Special conditions are the setbacks, front 35, eastern side 8, western side 10, and rear 35. Have a minimum 22 length driveway. They'll have to repair any curb, gutter, or sidewalk if damaged during construction. They'll be responsible for any water and sanitary sewer improvements. 13 and 14 tie this to the site plan submitted with the application and the building elevation submitted with the application. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Stubbs? All right, this time we'd like to have the applicant come forward and tell us a little bit about your plan. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Eric Neese here. My wife and I bought this property a little over a year ago. Miss Gwen that used to live there, we knew her, and with a neighbor helped her move to the town next door. She's doing very well now. We've been in Williams Park for 11 years now, my wife and I, raising 2 of our young boys, and we really love the city, really love Williams Park and all it has to offer, and we're looking forward to building our forever home here for our kids to grow up in. Happy to answer any questions. I do want to say thank you to Joey, his whole team, and my councilman, Travis Lindley, as well. As a non-developer, this is a difficult process, but everyone's really helped me through the process, so thank you all for the kindness and professionalism.
Any questions for Mr. Neese? All right, this is a public hearing. At this time, we'd like to ask if there's anyone in attendance that would like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. Further discussion about this application with no one, all the lovely people in attendance that apparently came for the free pizza. Did not come to speak on Mr. Neese's application. Lucky guy. Further discussion, comments, anything? With that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Yes, excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to approve Z25-016.
All in favor, please vote. Good luck with your project, Mr. Neese. All right, the next item on our agenda is Z25-014. This is to allow rezoning from RHRPD. $519, it's 1.3 of Belmont Avenue. Iron. Smyrna LP is the applicant, if I butchered that. Mr. Martin in the background.
Good evening, I'm Rusty Martin. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Smyrna. This rezoning case, you guys will hear it tonight. You'll make a recommendation to Mayor and Council, and it'll be heard by the City Council at the December 15th meeting. The subject property is 1185 Belmont Avenue. It's 1.3 acres in size. It is currently zoned general commercial in the City of Smyrna. It has a couple of buildings on it with some accessory structures. The applicant is proposing to demo the site and then build a new senior living facility. It's going to be 3 stories tall with 53 units at a density of 41 units per acre. This project will be a LIHTC project, so they'll be seeking tax credits from the state with respect to creating affordability out here, with 20% of the units being affordable to people making 80% of the area median income. So they will be locked into 62 and up as the residents that will be out there. and then 20% of the units will be geared towards affordable units, and the rest will be market rate units. The proposed zoning is residential high-rise planned unit development and conditional. The city's future land use map has this property with a designation of moderate density residential, which allows up to 4.5 units per acre. With this request, there'll need to be an amendment to the city's future land use plan, and the change is to high density residential, which allows 10 or more units per acre. A little background on this site and this property. This area, there was some property that was in Smyrna, but a majority of the property that was in, between Belmont Avenue and Pierce Avenue in Hawthorne was in an unincorporated island within the city of Smyrna. So it was in Cobb County's jurisdiction, but surrounded by the city of Smyrna. In 2022, I believe, there was a legislative annexation to bring those properties into the city. So this was one of those properties, and it got brought into the city. When you bring a property into the city from Cobb County and there's not a rezoning associated with it, that property's zoning designation goes to the closest zoning designation that Cobb County has. So Cobb County has a general commercial zoning district that was maintained on that property when it was brought into the city, and the city's general commercial zoning district was applied to the property. So with respect to that, the property had an existing use out there for an irrigation company, and they had a couple of buildings and so forth, and a couple of accessory structures, and that's a functioning and operating business from my understanding at this point. The adjoining properties to the east and south, or to the west and south are moderate density residential. To the east is public institutional, and then to the north is mixed use. Going back to the county's comprehensive plan, the county's future land use plan for this property was low density residential. That is sort of their default land use designation that they use for areas that they haven't really planned for or looked at with respect to planning. So coming from that perspective, they never looked at this area and tried to address the incompatible issues between the zoning of the property in GC and what they were proposing from a future land use designation of low density residential. So we'll get into that later on as we move forward. This is the site plan of the property. The building is on the east side of the property. The parking is on the left side of the property. The amenities are towards the back in the orange or beige color, and then the residential units are the blue color. The development is proposing a 20-foot front setback, a 10-foot side, and a 10-foot rear. They're proposing 3 stories, 53 one-bedroom units. It's 100% one bedroom, and then ages 62 and up. The front and middle of the building are 3 levels with 1-bedroom units. The rear of the building has the leasing office and then has its amenity areas to serve the residents. 10-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter, and then 55 surface level parking spaces. There is an existing billboard on site. That billboard will not be going away. So it presents a site constraint for the property with respect to development. The stormwater detention for the site will meet city requirements, and it'll be shown as being underground within the parking area on this property. And with respect to the stormwater management, if this were to get approved by mayor and council, when they come for their development permitting, they will be required to do a full hydrology study that looks at upstream and downstream of the property, looks at the amount of water that is on the property, and then looks at the rate that it's leaving, where it's going, and the impact downstream. They will have to size their detention facility with respect to the release of the water and then the volume that they're holding to create a 10% reduction from what is there today. And then they will have to ensure that they are not creating an issue when that water is released, that it's not piling up somewhere else in a drainage ditch or something like that. So they'll have to figure out how to tie it into the city's facility that does not, in a way that does not create impacts to the surrounding properties. With this development, they're going to provide a 5-foot sidewalk and a 2-foot grass strip in front of their property with an associated right-of-way dedication. So they're going to provide a right-of-way dedication to get the city's right-of-way up to the minimum standard and to get all those improvements on city property. And they have also agreed to put a 5-foot sidewalk in front of the property at the corner of Belmont Avenue and Dixie Avenue to create the pedestrian accessibility from their site to the existing sidewalks on Dixie Avenue, which ties into the sidewalks at Belmont and then as you go south to Hawthorne. With this request, there's 7 variances. The first one's to allow a reduction in the front setback from 50 feet down to 20. The second one is to allow a setback reduction in the side setback from 40 down to 10. The third one is to allow a setback reduction for the rear setback from 40 to 10. Number 4 is to allow a reduction in the 75-foot buffer adjacent to residential single-family zoning district down to 10. Number 5 is to reduce the minimum acreage requirement from 2 acres down to 1.3 acres, and then allow a reduction in the minimum lot width from 200 feet down to 50, and then allow a reduction in the required height from 45 feet down to 35. So in the residential high-rise requirements, it requires a minimum building height, which is a little bit different than most cases where we're limiting the maximum height to a certain thing. So it requires a minimum 4 stories. So they're requesting to reduce that to bring the building more in line with what's going on with respect to the residential scale around it. I did want to provide just a little bit of analysis from you guys so you guys understand what is allowed on this site with respect to what's entitled today from the GC zoning standpoint and what they're proposing and sort of the distances from that perspective, right? If you guys turn this down, mayor and council turns it down, it remains GC. That property owner has inherent rights with respect to the development of the property that are allowed with respect to that. So I wanted to also show you guys the variances before from the RHR requirements. I wanted to show you the differences from GC versus what they're proposing, right? The minimum lot area for GC is 20,000 square feet. RHR, they're proposing 1.3 acres, which is 56,000 square feet. The minimum lot width for the zoning, the GC zoning district is 100. They're proposing 150 feet. Front setback is 40 feet on a residential street, and it's 20. They're proposing a front setback of 20 feet. Side setback is 10. They're proposing 10. Rear setback, which is along Windy Hill, is 30 feet, and they're proposing 10. The maximum building height in the GC zoning district is 55 feet. They're reducing that down to 35 feet. The landscape buffer is 10 and 10 on a normal zoning. The 75-foot landscape buffer was required as part of the plan development requirements. And then impervious surface area, GC allows up to 100% coverage, max coverage. The planned development for residential high-rise is 80%. The allowable uses that are, the number of uses that are permitted in a GC zoning district is 100 plus. When they're making their request for residential high-rise, they will be limited to 4 permitted uses. In addition, they're requesting a site plan specific zoning. So what they're showing is what they're entitled to. If they want to change that entitlement, they have to come back to mayor and council to change it. They won't be allowed to do anything else by right. So I just want to give you guys some clarification with respect to that stuff. These are the proposed elevations for the property. So you got your south. Your south elevation is what it's going to be facing Belmont Avenue. The north elevation will be facing Windy Hill. And then you have your east elevation, which is facing Calvary Church, and your west elevation, which is facing the school to the west. And then a little bit more perspective and 3D renderings of what's going on. This is the subject property today. I'm sure you'll hear from the residents that live in the immediate area. There's been property maintenance issues with respect, and also code enforcement issues with respect to this property. Potentially people living on the irrigation side of the property, and other issues that are not, or PD related issues on that site. We've been trying to get them addressed, but at this point, from a community development standpoint, we haven't been able to find anything with respect to people living within the building at this point. There is a gentleman that's lived there for some time that lives in a trailer in the back, but that was pre-existing the annexation into Smyrna at that point. So we're dealing with a non-conforming issue at that point. These are pictures of the adjacent properties. The left-hand picture is a picture from Windy Hill Road. So you got, a 6-lane highway with, on the eastern end, basically about a 20-foot elevation change that goes up to about 30 to 35 feet by the time you get to the billboard. So from the top of that slope down to the road, you got about a 30 to 35 foot grade change. And then the property to the south is on the right, which is just sort of clarifying what the neighborhood is, single family, and that's sort of a good generalization of what it looks like at this point. I mean, there are newer homes and redevelopment in there, but they're 15 to 20,000 square foot lots. And then the picture of the school and the church. With respect to this development, I know the applicant, and they can speak to what has occurred up to this point. But I know they've met with the leaders of the community, of the Williams Park neighborhood community, as well as the leaders of the area surrounding this site. We've gone through 2 or 3 iterations of the plan to this point. It started off as a 4-story plan with some contemporary architecture, had a mixture of 1 and 2 bedroom units. During those discussions, the community said they'd like to see it change to a 3-story product, would like to eliminate the 2 bedrooms with respect to the units, so there's not younger children or adult children living with the seniors in that unit and so forth. Looked at a connection from Belmont Avenue over to Dixie Avenue through the site, which there are topography issues that don't allow that to occur, but the applicant will take care of all that stuff. But there has been a dialogue between the leadership in the community and the developer with respect to certain things that they wanted to see. And the plan is sort of, reflects what those discussions have been. Has everything been accomplished? No, but there has been movement towards trying to address the issues with the development. When we make our recommendation from the staff perspective, there are points of consideration that we have to look at. One, this is a downzoning of the property. You're going from general commercial down to a residential use. You're, in addition, with respect to the issues out there, you're limiting the amount of uses on that property to residential uses with senior housing. The future land use, this area, like I said before, was never planned as under Cobb County's jurisdiction. They just gave it its default zoning, its default land use classification, and it was just an area that was in Smyrna that I think for the most part, at that point, most of the residents in that area received trash and water service from us, but didn't receive all their other services from the county. There are constraints on this property with respect to the topography, the lot geometry. It's not a square or rectangular lot that makes things easy from a development perspective. And then the billboard is also a constraint. The city has stated policies and goals with respect to senior housing and affordable housing. This addresses those goals while also allowing this type of development to be in an area that is close to the city's amenities, which is pretty rare sometimes. So it's an opportunity at this point to address that. And then the final is the elimination of some of the property nuisances for the existing neighborhood. With that being said, staff's recommending approval of the request from GC to RHR for 53 units at 41 units per acre, with the standard conditions from section 1201 that deal with the composition of the building, the underground utilities, no burning of debris, the traffic improvements, site lighting, and then the landscaping and tree ordinance. Special conditions lay out the setbacks as described, require 10-foot landscape buffer that set the max building height at 35 feet, limits the lot size to 1.3 acres, and the minimum lot width at 150 feet. Number 15 is the buffer strip with a minimum depth of 10 feet adjacent to all exterior property lines, and then the developer shall meet all fire access requirements deemed necessary by the fire marshal. 17, the developer is responsible for any water and sewer improvements that are deemed necessary by the Public Works Director during plan review. 18, the developer is responsible for any stormwater improvements deemed necessary by the city engineer. The trash dumpster shall utilize rubber tops and be appropriately screened with 3-sided brick enclosure. And then 20 requires a minimum 55 parking spaces. 21, the development shall be restricted to 62 and older. And then 22, all of the units shall be one-bedroom units. And then 23 and 24 tie the development to the site plan shown and the elevations provided. So if they get to permitting and they run into something and what's reflected on the site plan is not achievable, or from an elevation standpoint, this building elevation is not achievable, they'd have to bring that back to council to get approval of that change. So if they wanted to do 2-bedroom units, that had to come back to council for a change. If they wanted to change it to 55 and up, they'd have to come back to council for that change. They're not going to be permitted to have that stuff without having a discussion with the public and with the council first. So they'll have mayor and council make the decision on that at that point. So, but with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions for you guys.
Questions for Mr. Martin?
All right.
At this time, we'd like to have the applicant come forward and tell us a little bit about. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Wesley Brown. I'm the Director of Development for the Vicino Group, and our company is really looking forward to working in the Smyrna community.
What can you tell us about the proposed development?
Yeah, so we have acknowledged that there is a pretty significant need for senior housing, and so we have identified this site as particularly well suited to fulfill that need. I think that staff covered many of the challenges related to the site. We've had several conversations with the community that have only improved the project to date. Things such as the building height, the unit mix, the number of parking spaces, the architectural look and feel, like really making it fit into the community. When we originally brought the proposal, I think that we were, it was a strong proposal, but I think that it has only gotten stronger as we've had several conversations with the community. I think the only, well, I'll say, all of the feedback that we have heard, we have been able to make an adjustment to the development to improve the development, and we're really satisfied with what we're seeing.
As far as the conversations with the community, how many, can you give us an idea?
Well, I've met with individuals and I've met with groups.
Guys, I'll give you your chance in a minute. Let's let him speak. Sorry, I forget I have a gavel.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Specifically, I'd met with, my first meeting was with the neighbor, Jennifer Forstner. I followed that up with a meeting with Andy Bennett, oh my gosh, names, Ron, whose name is eluding me, Lim Ward, the current neighborhood association president of Williams Park, whose name is eluding me. Keith. Thank you.
What?
Yes, thank you, Keith. Yeah, and then there've been a handful of email back and forth, just following up with additional feedback, and then I met with that group again and staff at the planning office a couple weeks ago.
Awesome. Nothing else, I'm impressed that you pulled up the names out of memory that you did. Several of the people that I saw on the list and that I know in the community, including Mr. Ward. All right, any other questions? Comments for the applicant? Thank you very much, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
All right. This is a public hearing. We'd like to ask anyone in attendance that'd like to come forward and speak in favor of or opposition to this application. Come forward one at a time, state your name and address for the record, and please sign the sign-in sheet at the podium. And on the sign-in sheet, we just need your name and your address. And if we could, instead of hearing the same comment over and over again, if you could just echo the person in front of you when you want to echo their comments. Quite a few people in here. We like that everybody that wants to speak, we want to give them the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners and members of staff. My name is Jen Forstner, and I live in the community adjacent to 1185 Bellman Avenue. I'm here tonight representing a broad group of neighbors who share deep concerns about the proposed high-density apartment development before you. We have many here in the audience with us tonight, as well as a petition that I know was shared earlier today that was just started just 1 week ago, yet already has secured nearly 200 signatures. I think we're up to 198 right now. This project, as proposed, conflicts with the Smyrna's long-range city planning vision for this corridor. Default or not, zoning codes serve as promises or commitments to residents about what kind of growth and development will occur. The Smyrna Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map that was published in 2023 emphasizes balanced, compatible growth that protects the character, safety, and infrastructure of established neighborhoods. By contrast, this proposal introduces density far exceeding what our area was ever planned or zoned to sustain. Beyond this fundamental inconsistency with our city's plan, the community is also deeply concerned about the practical impacts that this project would have. Traffic and congestion on Belmont Avenue and surrounding streets that already experience backups during peak hours. Safety risks is another one, especially with pedestrians, emergency vehicle access, and the nearby school. And environmental and stormwater challenges given the site's topography and limited drainage infrastructure. But perhaps most importantly, the precedent it would set if existing zoning codes and density limits were overridden to accommodate this project. Approving variances of this magnitude would not just affect Belmont Avenue, it would open the door for similar departures from the city's carefully developed land use standards across the entire area of Smyrna. Tonight, several of my neighbors are here, and several will expand on these concerns in greater detail. We'll start with Nicole Bennett, who will discuss the neighborhood fit, focusing on architectural character and community compatibility. Then we'll have Andy Bennett, Kathy Pack, and Emily Johnson to address aspects of neighborhood feasibility, including traffic, parking, and safety concerns. Sarai Jones will address her concerns specific to the neighborhood school. Karen O'Brien will cover environmental and stormwater considerations. Lem Ward will speak to zoning and variances tonight. Carrie Kennedy will address concerns regarding the impact of property values and homeowner insurance. Jeff Bailey is going to discuss city precedent and how important that is. And Robert Reagans will speak to the developer track record and the importance of upholding Smyrna's standards. So I'd also like to, I think the record already shows that very few people within the community have been spoken to. I was one, I was the first one, but very few people have been spoken to up to this point, and many of our community members are only learning about this in the last week or so. But that said, let it be known that we are not opposed to thoughtful, well-planned growth. But this project in its current form simply does not align with the community's vision or the city's established plan. We respectfully ask the Commission to deny the requested variances and uphold the integrity of Smyrna's zoning and planning principles and protect the community that calls this neighborhood home. Thank you for your time and for your service to our city. And now I'd like to turn it over to Nicole Bennett.
Thank you, Ms. Forrester. Will you please come sign the sign-in sheet, or can we get it on a clipboard, maybe pass it around? Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome, Ms.
Hi.
Bennett.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Nicole Bennett, and my family has lived here on Pierce for more than 20 years. And before that, in a townhome in WPN, and that altogether is about 25 years. And I wish I had a nickel for how many times I've walked around that pond. Adams Pond, before that it was the Ponderosa, now it's the Grove at Adams Pond. When we first moved into our home on Pierce, we were the only family on the street, both streets, with a baby. Now there are babies and children on every block. Kids riding bikes, families chatting on porches and on sidewalks, folks out walking dogs, pushing strollers, people staying and raising their children right here instead of moving to East Cobb as they once did in droves. That's because this is now a true neighborhood, one that feels livable, walkable, and rooted in community. Our streets are lined with single-family homes that share a consistent architectural rhythm, albeit very eclectic. Front porches, pitched roofs, modest heights, landscaped yards, mature trees. People have a lot of pride in their property. It's a neighborhood of connections where you know your neighbors and the buildings fit together in scale and character. But this proposed 60-unit apartment complex completely breaks that pattern. It would introduce a large, multi-story, high residential block that towers over nearby homes, replaces an intimate residential streetscape with something oversized and impersonal. It would fundamentally change the feeling of this community from neighborhood to a complex. Cobb County has historically allowed a mix of commercial and residential properties in this area. And for years, that has meant that there were small businesses tucked in between our homes, some of which became underused and blighted. But recently, we've seen the community redeem some of these properties in thoughtful and very positive ways. Small local businesses are opening that actually contribute to the neighborhood's vitality. The momentum is forward and healthy towards reinvestment and not decline. I cannot tell you how much this neighborhood has changed. We're not opposed to development. We welcome responsible development that fits within the character, something owned rather than rented, something in the spirit of the brick townhomes on Spring or the townhomes at Hawthorne and Gilbert. Those projects show how new construction can enhance a neighborhood rather than overwhelm it. They're scaled appropriately, they use complementary materials, and most importantly, they bring long-term homeowners, people with a stake in the community. Approving this apartment project as proposed would turn back that progress. It would replace community investment with short-term tenancy, human scale with building mass, and architectural coherence with imbalance. Please protect what makes this area special to us. Let's ensure that any redevelopment on this site honors the neighborhood's scale, character, and importantly, a sense of ownership, the very qualities that have made this one of Smyrna's most loved and livable areas. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's Andy Bennett. I live at 1352 Pierce Avenue. I'm with my wife, Nicole, who spoke a few minutes ago, and our 7-year-old son, Finley, who's a junior at Campbell High School. We've lived on Pierce Avenue for nearly 20 years, after 3 years in Ivy Spring Townhomes in Williams Park. We've seen significant growth in the area, and we fully support high-quality development that enhances both the neighborhood and the city of Smyrna as a whole. With that said, the Belmont developmental proposal raises serious concerns for our community, particularly around traffic flow, which is already at near or high capacity during morning and evening rush hours particularly. adding hundreds of additional daily trips as outlined in the proposal and reflected in the traffic study, which only intensifies its congestion during peak hours. These issues are made worse by Belmont, which has 3 available exits heading out of there. The first one is Hawthorne to Windy Hill. It's eastbound only. This exit forces drivers east unless they attempt a dangerous U-turn through oncoming traffic to go west. This situation will worsen as the approved 300-plus units are built across the intersection at the north side of Windy Hill. The second is Belmont Street to Reed Street to Windy Hill. This route requires navigating a narrow, minor thoroughfare with no traffic lights or sidewalks between Adams Grove and the proposed development. Walking this stretch after dark is already hazardous, especially with the steep hill and speeding cars in both directions. With a church on one side of the proposed development and a school on the other, this becomes a major pedestrian safety concern. The recent Halloween hit-and-run incident in Smyrna, involving a father and child on Spring Street, underscores the seriousness of these risks. Pedestrian safety must remain a priority, and adding hundreds of additional daily trips on an already stressed road will not help this situation. At Windy Hill, this exit requires merging eastbound into fast-moving traffic. Attempting to turn west, crossing 2 busy lanes opposite the Fox Creek Golf Course, is a risky and interesting maneuver, even at the best of times. The Hawthorne-Dixie to Atlanta Road exit requires crossing the railroad tracks where only 1 car can safely queue between the tracks and the railroad sign when turning left. This area is frequently backed up, as it was this evening, and many drivers ignore the markings. Adding additional vehicles here will only increase the danger, which is already a high-risk intersection and one that should be a real concern for the city, even in the present conditions it is. Introducing 53-plus apartments into an established residential area will increase traffic, strain local streets, and worsen conditions at already busy intersections during key times of the day. We support development. We simply ask for the right kind of development. Projects that enhance our community and improve the great city of Smyrna without compromising safety or overwhelming local infrastructure. Traffic and pedestrian safety must remain central considerations for everyone's concern. Thank you for your time.
Good evening and welcome.
Hi, evening. My name is Roby Mitchell. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. I serve as board chair of A Better Cobb, a civic organization focused on advancing smart growth, inclusive housing, and better quality of life across our county. As someone who works in Smyrna and cares deeply about its future, I'm encouraged by the proposed redevelopment being discussed. That property has needed attention for years, and this project represents real progress. It's worth remembering that smaller, more affordable homes in this area have been bulldozed in recent years. The neighborhood has changed, as all do, but it's troubling to see resistance whenever new housing might welcome residents of modest means or seniors on fixed incomes. Let's be honest. Opposing projects like this isn't about traffic or density. Seniors will not add much traffic. It's about keeping certain people out. Smyrna deserves better. This proposal brings dignity, stability, and vitality to a long neglected site, and I urge the city to move it forward.
Your comments, make sure you sign the sign-in sheet for us, please. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Pack, and I live directly across the street from the proposed development. The developer's parking plan is insufficient at only 55 spots for 53 units of 1 to 2 adults plus 2 to 4 property management vehicles at any time. If even 20 of the rented units had 2 drivers, each with a vehicle, That should require 77 parking spots. Again, they have only proposed 55 parking spots, causing the over 20 cars in need of parking. This doesn't even take into consideration guests of the residents. The overflow will inevitably spill into nearby residential streets, affecting current residents' quality of life and impacting residents and guests of the existing home. It also impacts the families and the members of the neighboring church and the school that's there also. And like he said before, we have a lot of traffic on Hawthorne and all in the afternoon. And that railroad, you know, the light only lets 2 or 3 at a time through there, so that's a big concern for Dixie and our street also. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. If you could sign the sign-in sheet for it. And I just apologize to all you guys because I cut through there and cut through that light because the one across the street here is even worse. I'm sorry, I do, almost every day. We don't have enough space for any bridges, Kathy. We don't need no bridges. Let them keep the bridges in Mableton. They got their own problems. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hi.
I dated a girl in Mableton, and I'm a little bit upset about that still. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's Emily Johnson. I live at 1363 Belmont Avenue, and I have a couple of safety concerns to go along with what we talked about. So the higher population density may require additional police or emergency vehicles, especially considering it's a senior living complex. There's a much higher chance that we're going to need additional emergency vehicles, and due to the insufficient parking that was just discussed, I have serious concerns about emergency vehicle access on our narrow streets. I also have concerns with access to the front door of the apartments with the graphics that were provided by the developer. And so with that, considering that there would be overflow street parking, I'm also concerned about the safety of pedestrians, especially children and seniors. As you've heard, there's a lot of people who walk around, and on that section, there are no sidewalks on Belmont Ave, and there's a very active community, especially with children riding their bikes and people walking their dogs. So simply put, I believe that the infrastructure here cannot safely absorb all of the impacts of such a large development, and respectfully ask that the commission holds firm on the density and scale limits that are already in place.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Come on up. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's Kathy Omeets. I'm a Smyrna resident.
Could you say that again, please?
My name's Kathy Omeets, and I'm a Smyrna resident. I live in Countryside, so I'm kind of on the other side, but I'm in a condo complex, and I think what I wanted to, I'm hearing everything from both sides, and I do sense fear of change, but from my perspective of what I wanted to give, I feel that this is a wonderful opportunity to do something very humanitarian with that neglected piece of property right now that is sitting in disrepair and so forth. And it fits in with the city, the plan of where the city wants to go. This city is growing, and it is city limits. Am I right there? So putting something in place that connects and adds to the vibrancy of the city is very, very wise, and this does that. And another interesting thing is I had recently occasion to visit the Dorsey Manor in Marietta. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a senior housing. And I had occasion to talk with multiple residents. And what impressed me was, let's not get away from isolating people. And as far as that goes, if you've ever seen European cities, the young and the older people, when they mix together, the older people have more time and they enjoy talking to younger people. And this would be an opportunity to actually, concerns will be addressed by you folks, the experts. You'll address the concerns, but in the big picture, this allows for biking and riding, and I think another gentleman addressed that there's not going to be as big of a traffic impact. But the thing is, it could be a really wonderful opportunity, and I was really impressed with the Dorsey Manor and what I saw there and when I visited. And anybody who has anybody who has any fears about some people like that living next to them should go visit the older people there. They're vibrant, they're well connected, but they're isolated. And that's basically all I wanted to say right now. So thank you.
Kathy, if you would please sign the sign-in sheet on the podium. Anybody else? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you, and good evening to everyone. I am the school right next door to the project.
Can you state your name and
My name
address
is
for the record?
Cherie Jones. I am the school right next door to the project that I
435 Dixie Avenue?
2435 Dixie Avenue. That I didn't even know was existing or happening until about a week or two ago. Thankful to my neighbors who watch out for us consistently. I am a business owner, a resident, a community member, and have been before this committee several times. And so I'm here to ensure the health, safety, and wellness of Smyrna's youngest residents. I represent the younger people who are not here to be able to have a voice. So I am their voice today. I don't think that the problem is the actual development and the age. Our community is diverse in age, in people, and it's very fluent. And we are growing, as everyone knows. We are growing. We welcome growth. As you keep hearing over and over again, we welcome growth, responsible growth. I want to let everyone know some things that may not have been taken in consideration is that we are a school. We are applying for our charter. We have the capacity of 125 students. With that being said, that is 100 cars coming in and out of this unit added with this development. No one took that in consideration. We are there. It was as if we were not there. There was no inclusiveness. And so that is additional traffic. I don't know if there's even been a traffic study to let me know what the impact was and our constituents what the impact would be. It feels as if we are approving this project blindly or considering this blindly, and that the residents are swapping one known problem for an unknown situation that could easily get out of hand. So I would like to respectfully request that the board delay any approval to give a full traffic, parking, and pedestrian impact study is completed, specific to our school's drop-off and pickup times. A performance and management plan of the new housing is submitted, including security measures, resident screening policies, maintenance standards, and measurable management outcomes. We don't even know what the buffers are. I do strongly think about the safety of the children that are there and would like to prevent anything that could happen. The school, I would like the delay of any approval, the school and community are given a formal opportunity to review the plan and recommend reasonable buffers, such as fencing, landscaping, and safe access separation between the new housing and the school campus. Without a formal traffic impact study, the city would be improving this project blindly, which creates liability if an accident occurs later. And given the public record of the management issues of the developer's previous site in Ithaca, because we are deemed to research what's coming. And they will speak on this later. But we strongly urge the city to require a comprehensive management and safety plan before any approval. This argument is not about stopping progress. It's about protecting the people who are already here. It's about, we are not opposed to the concept of affordable or senior housing in Smyrna. We are opposed to proceeding without due diligence and without ensuring the health and safety of our youngest residents and make sure that they are fully protected. I thank you for your time.
Very much for your comments, if you would, please.
Sure.
All right. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Karen O'Brien, and I live at 2475 Adams Drive. I'm here to speak about some concerns around environmental and stormwater issues. This site already struggles with drainage and limited runoff capacity. The proposed development would dramatically increase impervious surfaces while significantly reducing green space, creating a serious imbalance. Without a robust on-site stormwater management plan, we can expect increasing flooding, erosion, and water quality issues for the surrounding properties, problems that our neighborhood already has been dealing with. We're also concerned about the potential disturbance of legacy hazardous materials during demolition and excavation, which could have a lasting health impacts for those of us in the community, including the children. I mean, think about it, when you start tearing down that building, which is pretty old, probably has asbestos in it, and you got little children. I mean, these are elementary school age children right there who are gonna be breathing in, as well as the neighbors. We're already getting the dust from across the street there with the 300 apartment unit. So with that in mind, I would hope that there's going to be an environmental site assessment to identify any hazardous materials or contamination from previous industrial use, fuel tanks or lead or asbestos in existing buildings. We don't, the current owner of the property hasn't owned it since the building since it existence. It has garages. We don't know if there's any kind of oil or tanks underground, et cetera. So I think this is pretty crucial. So a historical property use review, site inspection for contaminants, and a recommendations for testing or remediation is really, really important. Smyrna's environmental and stormwater standards exist to protect both residents and downstream ecosystems. I respectfully ask the Commission to uphold those protections and reject any plan that shifts from the environmental risk onto the community. I also want to just clarify a couple of misstatements. As far as meeting with the community, there have been individuals that, yes, the Vicinio Group has met with, but as a community as a whole, no. We have requested that. We have not heard any response yet to have that community meeting. And most importantly, there's been no meeting with anybody who lives on Belmont Avenue, who lives across the street from where that proposed, where the proposed building is going to be erected. And also, just to point out, we do love our senior citizens. In fact, on Belmont, we have quite a few who live in the homes that right directly across from the property and down the street. So we do love our elderly people. We are a very mixed generational neighborhood, and so adding this property to it isn't really going to change that because we're already there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Who else? Oh, Mr. Ward. Good evening and welcome
Good
back.
evening. Lemuel Ward. I live at 1496 Spring Street in Williams Park, and I've been here before many times with a lot of you. And those of you who don't know me, I've been quite active in zoning issues in Smyrna, and I'm here because even though I live in Williams Park, if 1.3 on a 1.3 acre site at the end of Spring Street were proposed for this project, I'd be here in a flash, because I have some basic questions, not just about the area itself, but about the process being used to come to this conclusion. A residential high-rise has a very specific type of definition, and it's supposed to be 4 stories. Now, while the neighborhood, if they had to, would take 3, my question is, can you vary the very definition of a zoning category in order to build something? That sort of beggars the imagination, and it allows the exception to swallow the rule. It's the same thing with all this great number of variances that we see. Every single dimensional requirement is being varied, and sometimes drastically. One of the things that wasn't even talked about was the removal of the required 75-foot landscape buffer to be to a 10-foot setback. Now, we don't even know if it's going to be landscaped. And so with this great number of variances and the fact that the variance process is used here in a way that fundamentally changes it. I mean, this is in the nature of a use change. You can change certain characteristics of a building, and it's not a change in the actual definition of how that building is conceived. But if you go 3 stories, you got an apartment building. And an apartment building only allows a density of 12 units per acre. So that's a fundamental question. Not that I want to be the zoning sheriff of all of Smyrna, but that's a fundamental question about what do our ordinances really mean? Can every single thing be varied? Then that brings me to the question of the variance process states that there should be a hardship. I have heard no discussions or showings of hardship. Just because a property won't fit is not a hardship. Because it's not big enough is not a hardship. When I applied personally for a variance, the first question I got asked was, what's your hardship? Even though I had certified letters from all my neighbors which said, we're fine with Mr. Ward's project. They said, what's your hardship? And I had to prove it, and I did. Now, we haven't seen anything. The city council is going to have to be able to, is the one who is allowed by the code to rule on these variances, and they can do that. But again, they should be subject to the same thing. They should see what the hardship is, and it should be explained. The code says that. I think in the papers that Mr. Bennett gave to you is a memo that I wrote, and I emailed a lot of you this afternoon and provided a copy to Mr. Martin, asking these questions because these go to some really fundamental issues. Is what do we want Smyrna to be? Do we want it to be an ad hoc collection of let's take whatever we get? Because I will tell you, in Williams Park, when we fought things like this and won, we always got something better. And that's the real issue here, is something better coming along. It's sort of a, I don't know, sort of a boogeyman to say, well, general commerce could be 100 of anything. Well, that's just not a realistic thing. We're here to dealing with what's in front of us today. What's in front of us today is a project that doesn't really fit. And if it could fit, if something could work, then why do they need at least 8 variances, some of which are not even listed? There's a lot of things that we don't even know about. Another definitional problem that you see here with this is it should be on a major or minor thoroughfare. That's never been discussed. The lot coverage has never been discussed. We've just not seen a lot of stuff that's on these plans that should be on these plans. So I am here, if this was my neighborhood, I'd be asking that it not be approved. And it's not even my neighborhood, but I spend a lot of time and effort because I think it's fundamentally important that the code be followed in the city of Smyrna for all citizens. And finally, with the last 15 seconds, I will say, it would have been nice for us to be able to see the staff report and to see some things and to see the zoning application and see everything that was here so we would have a better opportunity to have some of these discussions. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Please sign the sign-in sheet for us. Sure. I could probably do it for you. Good evening and welcome. Hold on one second.
Just want to address the comment. Staff report has been out since Thursday. It's the same time as the PNC. It is online. It's online under the
What Mr. Martin just said is, if you didn't hear, the staff report has been out since Thursday on the city's website. We can get the information if you guys don't know where to find it, but
But we're not releasing it to, we release it to the public
Thursday before the Monday meeting.
They actually get what's posted online.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Bailey. Thank you, Chairman Powell, and committee members here. Appreciate you allowing us to come and voice our concerns. My name is Jeff Bailey. I live at 2485 Dixie Avenue. A lot of the maps that you see up there, my house is on those maps. So I'm within a stone's throw from where this project is taking place. 62-year native of Cobb County, so I know what's been going on here for a few years. I've been 5 years, city of Smyrna, but wanted to talk about the precedents, city of Smyrna, and upholding integrity and accountability. It's important to know the decisions have the ability to set a dangerous precedent elsewhere in our community and throughout Smyrna. And the decisions made tonight will extend far beyond Belmont Avenue. Smyrna's strengths, they lie in consistent, principled decision-making, protecting neighborhoods while welcoming appropriate growth. And each variance granted tonight becomes part of Smyrna's development, good, bad, or indifferent. We may not know now, but years from now, we may make some decisions we maybe wish we wouldn't have. And I think there's a lot more people here that are opposing this than there are in favor of it. So I respectfully ask the committee to consider that. We're asking that the zoning code maintains a fairness, predictability, and public trust. And they just set the right example by denying this variance and requiring that the project aligns with Smyrna's values. Again, I'm president of our Belmont Station HOA, and not only the members of my HOA, we're 100% on board. There's close to 200 signatures that have also opposing this, so I think that speaks volumes. Again, we're not opposed to growth, but it needs to be the right type of growth. And I think a 35-foot structure built among single-family homes is not the acceptable building that needs to take place here. So in closing, I asked, from the heart, I have a special needs son. We ride bikes quite a bit. Being autistic, he does not always alert and listen. So looking each of you in the eye, I ask from the heart, do not pass this. And that is my request. And with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Would please sign the sign-in sheet for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's Robert Reagans. I'm at 1305 Pierce Avenue, just about a block away from this development. I want to focus tonight for a few minutes on the track record of this developer, namely the Asteria Apartments in Ithaca, New York. It's been a slew of problems since they opened it in 2024. Just reading from some articles here, currently involved in lawsuits with about a dozen people, including former tenants and employees as well, alleging a nightmare of property mismanagement, uncontrolled trash accumulation, crime and drug use, myriad health hazards from waste and loose drug paraphernalia, insufficient security and safety accommodation, and basic maintenance issues that go unaddressed, like broken fire sprinklers and electric and hot water service interruptions. On top of that, they've had 7 different people to come in and manage the property in the year and a half that it's been in service there. They've had several high-profile public safety incidents, and even in Vecino's own words, their efforts have fallen far short of the project's lofty goals. So as much as Vecino comes in and promises the board, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, their record shows that they don't fulfill those promises. They don't care about the communities. Honestly, I think they're here for the tax credits. I think they mentioned before they're going for tax abatements on this project. Is that right?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
There is a tax component to it, but I'm not sure if it's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, again, So yes, again, there's a slew, again, just lawsuits abound with this company. Failure to follow through on any promises that they actually make to the communities that they're about to come into. And I just had a son, first child, he's 5 months old. I'd love to stay in this neighborhood. My wife and I moved here, one, because we love the Braves, we love being close to the stadium, but we also love the neighborhood. There's a lot of young families, a lot of young children. My wife and I like to go on walks with our 2 dogs and our son. We don't have any sidewalks to go on right now, and I feel like doubling the amount of people on that street, including the cars, it's gonna be a safety hazard as well. Just to iterate a little bit more on the actual management at Vecino here, they had to fire one of the property managers for rent theft. And, supposedly they've gotten that worked out, but, no way to really tell there. Let's see. Yeah, they continue just to not comment due to, ongoing legal investigation, so we can't really get any answers. All I see is just a pattern of promises that are not upheld. They pretty much come in and cause a lot of issues. I think it was something near 8% of all first responder calls responded to the Esteri Ithaca property alone for the whole city of Ithaca. And this is all cited in online articles you can find, and I'd be happy to provide those as well. So again, I don't think we can trust partnering with Vecino. I don't think they're gonna have the community's best interest at heart. And as a new father and a recent Smyrna resident here, been here about 4.5 years now, I implore you guys to please do not allow our city and allow our neighborhood to become another cautionary tale in the Vecino portfolio. Thank you.
All right, please sign the sign-in sheet for us, bud. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, my name's Melissa East. I am a Cobb County unincorporated resident, so I have no city to call home, but I appreciate you guys being willing to let me talk. And I wanted to thank all of you for being here tonight and allowing us to speak about this project. I am also interested in the redevelopment of this site, specifically because I believe in providing additional housing types for people. Not everybody wants to own a single-family home. Not everybody can afford to own a single-family home and all the maintenance that goes along with it. I think that this is a great proposed solution for seniors living in this community that are dealing with the affordability crisis, and I think that this is a good proposed solution in order to somewhat maintain and kind of basically give into the neighborhood architecture, and it fits with that architecture as well as, it's a gradual density. It's called a high-rise, but it's 3 stories. Typically, I work in construction. High-rise for me is 10 stories or above, so it's really funny having a 3-story be called high-rise and high-density. But again, just wanted to reiterate that from a planning standpoint, it checks many of the right boxes. It revitalized an underutilized site that's causing a problem for the community. It's an eyesore. There's, people, because it's vacant, people are congregating there, and then it replaces an aging commercial structure. It introduces a new type of housing that can serve senior residents that don't have a lot of options, and they're able to be near the community city center and still be able to be a part of the community. Additionally, the Mountain to River Trail is a huge benefit to Cobb County in general, and that property being so close, those residents can walk. They don't have to drive, and many of the residents, I would foresee many of the senior residents at an affordable housing property, they don't have cars, so they're not going to be adding to the traffic, and they're not going to be going to work. They're 62 and up. They're not going to be adding to that 9 to 5 traffic that was a concern. And again, they're adding the sidewalks to this property so that it adds to the existing sidewalks that are here. And again, to their point, I would encourage the city to add more sidewalks if that's what the residents are interested in, to provide more walkability, to be able to connect them to that Mountain to River Trail. And that's my suggestion.
Thank you very much for your time. Ms. East, please. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name's James Heyman, and I own a property on Belmont. I've actually been through the variance process as a homeowner, improving my home, so I kind of know how it works. I've got to know an awful lot of people in this room who have come by when we've been working on the place. We've seen them working on their places. And there really is kind of a sense of community. We're Smyrna residents, but we kind of live in that pocket. I don't think there's a single person in this room that isn't envious of this gentleman building his forever home and the process that he's gone through. And you come to a meeting like this, you put forth that plan, and everybody's in support. But then the flip side of it is you have a room full of people who really had no idea that this was going on. And you're talking about a development and, you know, making references to meeting with community leaders. And that just doesn't jive with the person who owns the business next door not being approached or being consulted. And so it really feels like there's, you know, two tracks here, and there's just a lack of kind of visibility that people have had. And I think I speak for a lot of people who feel like this has kind of been rushed through. And I just would echo a lot of the things that people have said about traffic. Belmont is 20 feet wide. There's no sidewalks. And great that there's going to be a sidewalk built in front that joins to Dixie. But there's nowhere to go other than to Windy Hill. You can't cross the railway line. You can't cross Belmont. We've talked about kind of the parking and just having cars there. So I think, you know, there's just the general consensus in the room that maybe this is moving really, really quickly and people haven't had the visibility. And I would wager that the process that this gentleman went through with plans, permits, and everything else has been going on for an awful long time before it got to this point. And so I just think that there would probably be a lot more trust restored by everybody if this was not sort of rushed to a decision quickly and that people were given more time and more visibility of what's going on.
Mr. Heyman, when you get, if you would sign the sign-in sheet, and thank you for your comments, but just one quick question. One of the first things that you said you had a variance on your property.
Yep.
What did the city make you do as part of that?
Actually, great question. So the first thing that we did was we had to go and speak to every neighbor.
Adjacent property owner, right?
And so the very first person I went to was my next door neighbor, funnily enough, which again highlighted kind of the irony that and I thought she spoke very, very calmly actually under the circumstances. I don't know that perhaps I would have felt the same, but that was it. And again, it's the community, you know,
But there's another step that they made you do.
I'll go to a hearing.
Now, before that, there's a window of opportunity that they require us to put signs on site.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And when we come up here and we say that we didn't know about it because of this or that, the people in this room that work for the city, that's part of their job, right? Is to make sure that that signage is posted, to make sure it's online. And so, look, I get it. We drive by them all the time, and whether we see them or not. But what they don't make us do is hire somebody to stand out there with a flag on the corner and go, hey, we're redeveloping this property, pay attention, right? So in fairness, the city staff, they're required by law to have those things posted. Now, whether we see them and recognize them, that's on us at some point, right? But I appreciate your time, and if you want to, since I stole part of your time, if you want
that's
to
fine.
yell at
Thank
me,
you.
that's absolutely fine. But thank you. Please sign in. Anybody else?
My name's Jonathan Otto.
Get all the way up
Yeah,
there, Mr.
I'm sorry.
Otto.
My name's Jonathan Otto. I'm a resident of Williams Park. To that point that you just made, I don't disagree with it. I've seen Mr. Diaz's. I've seen the one right next door. We see them. We walk by them. This property's not in a walkable area in terms of like where we're actually walking by it. And I know that's a bad point to make. I mean, obviously, it's probably proven a point that you're just trying to make there. But the reality is it's building in a neighborhood. And as someone who is a resident of that neighborhood, I would expect the respect, at least somewhat, that someone who's moving in would actually want to give the residents, the future neighbors of them, that respect. And so it's just kind of one of those things where, like, even the representative of the company, you applauded him for remembering people's names. Why didn't he had a sheet with him? Why didn't he pull out the names right there? Why was he not prepared? To me, right there, that actually tells you that there's a lack of respect coming into our neighborhood. Also, I'd just like to point out, like in Mr. Martin's proposal, I don't know if that was your proposal, but whomever prepared it, the staff recommendations, it actually had in there the hotel. It was line number 11, I believe. So if that was just a typo, so be it, correct it. And there was a lot of mistakes in there, mind you. You also made the statement that the future plans was for low-density residential areas. In the document that you shared, it had medium residential. And we. Also, I think it was basically, you know, you highlighted the current issues that we have with that property. You know, people have reported that people might be living there. We haven't been able to prove it. People are reporting other issues, code violations. Police department can't do anything about it. When you have potential abuse, or you already have existing abuse in the existing property, having potential abuse of that, how are we going to police that? If someone ends up moving in with their 62-year-old person who no longer works, which I find hilarious. Thank you for really highlighting that we're out of touch. I mean, I'm 45.
Hey, Mr. Otto, keep it up here with me, please.
I would say also one of the things actually being mischaracterized about our neighborhood, obviously we've had plenty of people point out how diverse the neighborhood is. I talked to people of all ages. We had a wonderful time at Halloween here recently, and just seeing the diversity coming through. As someone who moved into the neighborhood 2 years ago, and which I also benefited from one of those houses being torn down that probably should not have been actually still erected. And I live in a really nice house. This is the place where me and my wife plan on setting up roots for years to come. And so whenever it's being mischaracterized that we don't want certain people in the neighborhood, that's terrible. I mean, and reality, we already have a memory care facility in the neighborhood. We have a senior living facility in the neighborhood. It's not like we don't want elderly people. We don't want to be humanitarians. I'm liberal. You know, reality, I live in the South. It's fun. But it's just one of those things where I think, as everybody else pointed out, we did not know about this. We did, and I know, I get what you're saying. But I would say that as someone who's moving in to actually represent a business trying to move into what has become and evolved into a residential area, have a little respect for the residents who actually live there. I can guarantee you, actually, just given, like I said, I found out about this yesterday, and I'm here. This is the first time I've actually been to one of these, and I will actually be more civic from here on out. But the reality is that we did not know about it, and regardless of a signpost that was up or whatever, the developer, if you want to be a good neighbor to us, have the respect to actually tell us about something that is changing the way of life here. So, yeah, I guess that's all. So,
thank you, Mr. Otto. Please sign the sign-in sheet for us. Anybody else? Oh. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is James Jones. I live in the Grove at Adams Pine, and I just found out about this Sunday through a Facebook post. My neighbor here with me, he just found out an hour ago. Another neighbor I called, they couldn't make it because their parent just died. So this is a very important thing for us. I have a 15-year-old that goes to Campbell. He's in band. He walks back and forth to school every day on Hawthorne. So I'm very concerned about the traffic. I mean, I moved over here because I was living in Austell. So I moved over here because I didn't want to move next to an apartment complex or high-rise facility. And now they're in the process about to build one next to where I live. So that kind of defeats the whole purpose of moving over here. And I am looking for, I do think they need to do something to their property, but building that building's not it, you know. So just want to keep it simple and sweet.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Please sign in the sign-in sheet for us. Anybody else?
No, I can't.
Already gave you a chance.
Point of clarity?
Real quick, and I don't know that it's really necessary, but just give me a second. So when we do this, I try to make it as fair as possible. Keep the meeting as balanced as possible. Give everybody the opportunity. Give the public the same opportunity that you give the applicant. And if we have everybody coming back up to speak, it can prolong the meeting in perpetuity. And so, like, if this is a one shot and you're going to make a clarifying comment.
I want to clarify something that was said. So you had made the comment about the signs that go up, and I appreciate that. I think it's important to note, and I don't know that we have, I think Rusty actually put a picture up early on of where those signs were. This property is unique because, yes, it's a business, but there's also a house that sits on the business's property, and the signs went up in front of the house. So I think anybody going by probably wouldn't have even realized it was for the business, but rather it would be for a house. And we see those all up and down the street at any given time, and probably would not bring the same sort of concern that would be in front of a business. So I just wanted to clarify that and make sure that that was pointed out.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I'm Eric Magsman. I live at 1593 Roswell Street in Smyrna. We've lived here for approximately 4.5 years in the Smyrna area. So I'm going to do my best. If I repeat something, I apologize, because I know that was rules of the road to not repeat things. So here's what I know. There's been some, what I believe to be, I'll call them disingenuous statements about this walkable development. Belmont, from end to end, except in front of the houses closer to Reed Street, those have sidewalks. But do we want to encourage people, older people, to go walk along Hawthorne? Come on, go to Hawthorne and then go across the railroad tracks? I mean, that's not responsible development in the eyes of safety. And we can all argue about how many cars are going to be at a senior facility. There are going to be more cars, whether it's the cars of the residents, the visitors, Uber Eats, Ubers. I mean, it's more traffic. That road, assuming there was a traffic study, a responsible traffic study done, there is no way that road is rated for additional traffic above and beyond the parcels that are on that lot. So when we talk about these things, there's just things where it's just like, and another thing I don't really think much people have really stressed here, it is going to reduce property values. It is going to reduce people's desire for the future development of those lots, which is something that's going to naturally come. It is not a walkable area in general. All of the streets that are perpendicular to Hawthorne, they don't have sidewalks. I see people who live here with their kids out there, and I'm like, I got to drive slower. I'm not being dramatic. I mean, we want this to be a kid, family, neighborhood, city, and this is not a development that drives with that. And the last thing, the one thing I know it's early in planning, but I'm concerned from the perspective of emergency vehicles. I'm not 100% sure how you're going to get an emergency fire truck all the way around to the backside up against the church if you ever had, God forbid, to fight a fire. I didn't really see a provision for a fire lane back there. I don't think you're fitting one back there. So most fire departments are going to have a concern about that because they like to serve the entire perimeter of a building, worst case scenario. And then last thing, adding in this whole thing about the development process and traffic improvements, what traffic improvements are you really going to make on that road? There are none. It's not big enough. You're going to add some more striping? Add a light? No. That's just a throwaway comment. I think we're all smarter than this. Smart development. Nobody's holding a gun to our head saying, we got to go develop this property, or else we can wait for what's right for the community. Thank you.
Please sign in, Eric. My least favorite thing in these meetings is applause. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Randy Lewis, and I live on Pierce Avenue, a street adjacent to this property. I promise to keep this very quick. My wife and I found the Williams Park area actually on accident during COVID. We were trying to bike on the Silver Comet Trail and then go to Rev Coffee, and found ourselves driving through some beautiful homes, and we're now very proud homeowners in that area. It's not just beautiful homes and a beautiful area, but a strong community. And I think you've heard from some very well spoken people that live in our community. It's very strong, a very strong community that is people who wave to each other when they go by, families pushing strollers, cyclists, everything. it really is a strong community in that respect. I'm sorry, I forgot the point that I was going to try to make.
Take your time.
I guess my wife and I walk past this property in question every day. I'm a cyclist and drive through this area, and I can just tell you it is not safe for more additional homes of any sort. I mean, it just, I know we keep beating the traffic thing, but it really is becoming a concern already. And then adding 100 units or more is just unthinkable, really. When you walk, if you walk Belmont, you would just understand in a heartbeat that thinking about all the construction equipment that would have to go on this street to build it, the amount of traffic for things like fire trucks and all that, it just isn't feasible. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope that you strongly or recommend that you shoot down this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Will you please sign in for us? Anybody else? It's right here. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Geneva Lewis. My husband is Randy, and I just obviously want to echo the statements of everyone in our community. When we first were in the process of buying our home, we used to tease like, okay, put the paid actors away. Like, we get it. It's a great community. People are around with their dogs and families, and that's the community we wanted to settle in. And I would echo the concerns on property value and echo the concerns on traffic. But I think it's really important that everyone today that is spoken to in opposition truly lives in the community, and those that have spoken in favor do not live in our community. And I think that's something really important to consider.
Anybody else?
Hello.
Good evening and welcome.
My name is Crystal Foster. I live with my husband, Clint, on 1294 Belmont Avenue. And we bought our house during COVID 5 years ago. And we love our neighborhood. We walk almost daily, including past the subject property. And I did go to the city meeting when we were annexed into Smyrna in 2022. I'm not sure if the traffic and drainage concerns that the city had mentioned that they were going to address at that time have been addressed. To my knowledge, they haven't. I also wonder if the sewage lift station has the capacity. It's on the sewage lift station, it's on Belmont Avenue. I see sewage trucks go past a lot to service that, and I wonder if they have the capacity to handle that much additional sewage. And I echo all the other concerns about the traffic and stormwater drainage issues. And my concerns about the high-density residential property are much greater than the business that currently resides there. And again, I walk past it almost daily. So I respectfully oppose rezoning to high-density residential as well. Thank you for listening.
Good evening and welcome.
Hi, my name is Ed James, and I live at 2431 Reed Street. And, you know, sitting here tonight listening to all of our concerns, it's come very apparent that there is a large favor of tax-paying citizens that are very much against this. And I hope that you have your ears open as a public servant and understand that you have the public here speaking to you. As Mr. Ward said, all these variances just to accommodate something doesn't seem fair and reasonable? Are we gonna start setting a precedence that we're only gonna follow certain laws, certain codes, and I'm not in favor of this place. I'm not in favor of it because I feel that it's something that's going to degrade the property values, which in turn, does that lower my taxes? I don't know. But I'm just gonna be honest, it's not the best idea to go forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. And I can answer the question on taxes if you really want me to. All right, I believe we've given everybody a chance. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Hamilton. I'm the new pastor at the church that is right next to this property. I didn't come tonight planning to speak. I mainly came because I do want to love the community that I am recently called to. I want to listen to what their concerns are. And whatever happens in our community in the future, I want to love whoever's there. So it's not a big concern with more people. As a church, we got to love people. But I do listen in just some practical things from our church's perspective. We are a growing church. We have some new families that are joining and are coming. And one of our big concerns is to continue to love people that do come into the neighborhood. If you've got 55 parking spaces, guess where the first place they're going to park 10 feet away is our property. And so it's not loving for us to have to continually chase people off of our parking lot to really accomplish what we're trying to accomplish with our church family. That's our biggest concern, and we want to love the neighborhood that's there and the community that's there and whatever happens in the future, but that's one of our big concerns that would need to be addressed. Thank you.
Pastor Hamilton, please sign the sign-in sheet for us. Close public comment at this point. It's 7:42. About an hour and 5 minutes of opportunity for everybody in attendance to speak. I do want to extend one opportunity Brown to see if he wants to come back up and make any comments he wants. And by my count, you have about 59 minutes that you can fill if you choose. I'm joking.
I'm not going to use any of it. I just want to address the one comment that seemed to be repeated a couple times, and it was that there was a lack of public engagement. I did reach out to Councilmember Lindley, who was very helpful in guiding me to the neighborhood leadership. I spoke to, as I mentioned before, the leader of the Williams Park community. To my knowledge, the subject property at 1185 does not have the same structure of like a formally recognized neighborhood leadership. I also have spoken with the assistant pastor at the church. I dropped off my card there, knocked on the door, had a conversation with those folks, offered a conversation and a follow-up at any time. I also knocked on the door of the school a couple times, and unfortunately no one was there during the day hours. We have and will continue to be a friendly face throughout the community. I would hope that the the changes and modifications that we've made to date would satisfy a lot of the concerns, and we will continue to make changes as requested.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Is there any further comment or discussion from the applicant or staff? And first, and by all means.
I just wanted to clarify some things with respect to the signage and what's required by state law with respect to posting the property and following Zoning Procedures Act. State law requires us to post the property with signage as well as run an ad in the MDJ no less than 15 and no more than 45 days before the public hearing. This zoning request has been tabled before, so those signs have been out a minimum of 45 days. The action of tabling it at the last meeting resets the clock with respect to this hearing. So, those signs are there. We'll be happy to go out and check to make sure they're up, and they're visible. I know they get knocked down sometimes and stuff like that, but we'll go out there and check. The whole frontage of the commercial property is basically a driveway. So there's not really anywhere you can put it in the middle of that commercial property. So we'll go add additional signage if that's needed. With respect to the neighborhood, we try to guide the developer to the neighborhood leadership. As Wesley stated, the immediate area doesn't have an organized group. So we send him to the councilman, because with respect for the people that he has contact with, we send him to Williams Park because we know they have a lot of contacts. I'm sure some people within the immediate area also bleed into their community pages and their organization up there. So there has been some guidance to make contact. I think he's tried to do that. I think we're trying to set up another like community meeting between now and for the whole community between now and the mayor and council meeting to have some more dialogue and discussion. With respect to fire comments, stormwater, and all that, we don't get to this point without the city engineer, the fire marshal, the chief building official, and then public works reviewing an application to make sure that we are able to service this development. If there was not capacity for water and sewer for this development, we all would have had a letter. We write them a will-serve letter that says we have capacity for it if it's there. If it's not there, then we say we don't have capacity, we can't do it. And then we're highlighting in the memo, there's not adequate facilities to serve this community. The fire marshal reviews all requests. The fire truck is able to pull all the way on site and go almost all the way back to the billboard, and there's an adequate turnaround on the property to back that truck up and get out and pull out forward. Because they can't back up more than 100 feet. So, and with respect to infrastructure in the neighborhood, I know Public Works is doing analysis of stormwater for what they need to improve, as well as the roadway, curb and gutter, and sidewalk and all that stuff. I imagine that is going to probably be a SPLOST item or some sort. Remember, this property was not in the city of Smyrna 3 years ago. So the city has not been planning to maintain all the roads and infrastructure within this community. So we've got to pick up the ball where Cobb County dropped it and pick it up and basically get it back to the level and standard that the rest of Smyrna is supposed to be. So we're working on that, but it's going to take time. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. So just to kind of, already closed it, sir, sorry. Just to echo a little bit of what Mr. Martin said, the city took this over a couple years ago. Infrastructure improvements are coming. It just takes time. The redevelopment of property, rezoning, is the toughest issue that we hear in in this chamber. One, because it's most of our most significant investment. We're your neighbors. Everybody sitting up here is a citizen of this town. We all represent different wards. I live in Ward 3. I'd literally drive Hawthorne almost every day, at least 2-3 times a week. I'm not going to tell you how I sneak around and I beat everybody at the traffic lights because I don't want to be in line. There are ways around it. Traffic is Traffic is an unnecessary and a very necessary evil that we have dealt with in this town and will continue to deal with. That's part of living in Smyrna, you know. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the Market Village was being developed. About that time, I believe this chamber was built. Smyrna on Bank Street, the street right here, 23 years ago, there were 3 kids. Starting about 5 years ago, we've had a graduate every year, and it'll continue for like the next 10 years. Couldn't tell you the number of kids. I can tell you a lot of them because I yell at them. But our town is growing. Our community is vibrant. When the community comes together like this and comes out, and they're all very respectful and very kind, and it means something to me to be from Smyrna, that we don't have to come out here and yell at each other. And Mr. Heyman, I wasn't trying to make a point with you. I just wanted, you know, everybody to know that city staff has to place a sign out there. It's their requirement. And to say that it's not done is, for me, to say that they're not doing their job. And I don't protect their job much because I argue with them as much as I support them. Sometimes more arguments. But we are all here because we care about our community, right? And I'm not trying to foreshadow or anything. I have no idea how this is going to go. Yeah, so, like, I appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate you guys, your passionate comments. I appreciate you keeping it to a minimum. I appreciate the fact that you care about my hometown, really do. With that, if there's any other comments. Any comments? With that, I'd like to entertain a motion. Sorry. And while there is no formal, neighborhood, I think, Mr. Brown, you've got ample evidence that there's a group here that can be contacted and discuss this plan in detail, as the next step is to go to mayor and council. And we're an advisory board for mayor and council, okay? So with that, Mr. Bentley, my apologies.
Yeah. Well, I know many of you people out there. I live in Williams Park, and I represent Ward 3.
Can you speak up?
I've been on the other side of this when I lived in Williams Park. We certainly have spoken up when there have been developments in the neighborhood over the years, and I've been in the neighborhood for 20 plus years. And I appreciate everybody coming out and being orderly, and the organization of the group, and how well spoken you were, and appreciate that. I have to say I was surprised by how many people said they weren't aware of this till last week. There was just a neighborhood meeting, not, the developer wasn't there, but there was a neighborhood meeting probably in September, because this was when this item was supposed to be on the October P&Z. And there were 15 or 20 people there from the neighborhood. And so at least those people knew generally what was going on. They might not have all the details, but they knew what was going on. There had already been some meetings between the developer and some of those people. And I guess it's just, I was just surprised. I'll just note that. I would have thought this was been a hot topic of discussion for a couple of months now in the neighborhood. And I guess I'm just surprised by that. I think this need for senior housing, I think that's something that everybody really needs to be aware of. I have been aware of this kind of indirectly for a while, but it happens when a family, so you have a family, most of you are very young, so you're not thinking about this, but someday you'll be old like me. And so you lose a spouse, so you're down to one spouse, and you don't want to live in a big house like you live in now, or a larger house. And you don't want to leave Smyrna. And really, there's not a place for people like that to go. I know some people personally that, well, they have to go to Woodstock or places outside Marietta. There's really no place in Smyrna that they can sort of downsize and live out their lives. So I think it really is important to be aware of that. Given all that, I think I've heard the key points of the arguments against have been traffic, definitely anything, as we hear on this board, hear proposals monthly, pretty much if anybody's raising a concern about any development, it's traffic. Because traffic's so bad already, and I get that. So if you build one house, you're going to add 2 more cars. So, so that's a very common thing. I will grant you that the streets on Belmont and Pierce are very narrow and do not have sidewalks. I walk my dog down there often, and I'm in sort of mid-morning or something, so there's not that much traffic when I do it, but I can imagine there is in the evenings and morning rush hours. And I hope you can get sidewalks there, but there's probably a list, there's a long list probably of neighborhoods wanting sidewalks in Smyrna. So it takes time. The other thing I saw was a key concern was ownership versus rental. I get that. With rental, you're thinking, well, what kind of people are going to be coming there? Temporary people, not people invested in the neighborhood, like somebody owning something. I think that's a reasonable concern to express, and I don't know exactly how that would play out with this particular development. I do think, well, I guess that's it. I did want to acknowledge Mr. Brown. I met with him on a couple times with other people here in the room. And at least he needs to be acknowledged for trying to accommodate pretty much everything that he was getting in the feedback. He reduced the size of the building. He turned the end so it would be more attractive, changed the architecture. Just about everything that was asked for, other than the fact that it's 53 units. So, and he couldn't go smaller than that. But like I say, over the years, I've dealt with many developers, discussions about development within Williams Park, and boy, that's the most concessions I've ever gotten out of any developer. Mostly it's like, no, this is what, they can't change their house to put a garage with a rear entry because I don't have a house plan for that. That's the kind of thing you get, you know. Like, we can't even do that. So for him to do all this, I think he deserves some credit for that. But I'm looking here, and we have despite the fact so many people didn't know about it, we still have over 200 people who knew about it and signed a petition. And so with all of that in mind, I'm not sure if this is the best decision or not, because who knows what's going to happen with that property eventually. But I mean, I think that's up to the neighborhood to try to decide. Do you want to sort of roll the dice on the future or accept what's before you? And clearly, the opinion is broadly that you don't want this in the neighborhood. So with that, I make a motion to deny Z25-014.
I have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Howard, all in favor of The denial, yes, I'm sorry. It was turned down 6-0. Thank you guys for coming out, and thank you for professional, calm, and understanding. Everybody in here is pretty much neighbors. With that, the last item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the October 13th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Phillips? Second? Mr. Phillips? Favor the minutes? Howard? Minutes are approved, 6-0. All right, with that, any further discussion? Further business? Anybody want their fingers smashed? Meeting's called at 8 p.m.